Welcome back to Light Talk, where the paranormal and the supernatural is a part of our everyday lives. We have an awesome guest with you, lots of stories, so we're going to get going. So, welcome to the show and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mike Sears. I'm the director and founder of Volunteer State Paranormal Research. I'm located out of Middle Tennessee, and I'm married and father of two. And prior military service, I served in the U.S. Air Force as a security police officer
Thank you for
in Desert
serving.
Storm and
Appreciate that.
Desert Shield. That. Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah, appreciate that. You guys have more guts than I would have doing that. I just bow to you guys. I salute you. I do the whole works because you guys are awesome. So, thanks for doing that.
thank you.
So, I know you have so many stories, so we're going to jump right in unless you have any books or something you need to let people know or anything you're going with.
I'm still working on my book. It's been going on for a few years. I've had a few setbacks, so hopefully wife and I are going to be working on it this summer, so hopefully we can get it finished and completed. But
Awesome.
still working
Awesome.
on that.
Sweet. Does your wife do this type of stuff too?
She goes on investigations and helps out, and her
Awesome.
aspect's really good because she's a an RN nurse, so she looks at things, medically, tries to rule
Wow.
out anything. We try to be skeptical on everything when we do, a private case.
Awesome. Awesome. I haven't heard anybody going into it in the medical side of it. That's really cool.
Yeah, we ask questions, if the client and if anybody in the family is, on medication, what type of medications, because sometimes, medication can make you hallucinate or see things that aren't there or have side effects that you think that you're feeling the cold chills or that might be paranormal, but it might be a side effect of the medication. So we try to rule out everything before we say it's paranormal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kudos to her. So, how did you get going into this? What started your
Uh,
interest in the paranormal?
well, my first encounter in the paranormal was at age 5, and my parents lived in Western New York in the Finger Lakes area. And one night I was going to bed and I was laying there in bed and I felt like I was being watched and I thought it was maybe one of my sisters up, uh, trying to mess around with me. And I turned around and there was a little girl sitting in this chair that I had in my bedroom. And she was wearing a white lace Victorian type dress and jet black hair with the long pin curls down her hair. And she just looked at me and smiled and waved. And, as a kid, I just rubbed my eyes and thought, is this real? And so I guess for a kid, shockingly, I just turned around and tried to ignore it. And then I felt the presence like it was right there next to me. And when I rolled over, she was standing at the side of my bed looking at me. And so that gave me more. I was spooked. So I jumped out of bed and immediately ran down the stairs super fast to tell my parents that I just saw a ghost in my bedroom. And they're like, "Oh, you were dreaming. It's your active imagination." But as time went on in the house, we had some activity that we couldn't explain. There was one day my dad and I were in the living room watching TV, and we heard my sister had a little wooden toy piano, something like you see in Charlie Brown with um, the character there playing the piano, something like that. And we heard it playing upstairs, and he goes, "Didn't your sister go shopping with your mother?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "How's that being played?" And so I ran up there, and it stopped playing when I was going up the stairs, and there was nobody in the room. So that was an experience that we had there. And my parents would try to just brush it off as, just a kid with an active imagination. That intrigued me into the paranormal. And throughout life, I had seen ghosts at, different locations and that. And kind of skeptical, like, is my, mind going crazy? Did I really see someone standing there? And so I had some encounters through life, but in 1994, when my parents had moved to Florida, the house that we lived in, my dad was battling cancer. And from 94 to 2000 was the big eye opener and life changing experiences of the paranormal, which spurred me into years later going into researching it and helping others understand what they're experiencing.
Wow. Yeah. So did you, I don't want to get too personal or sensitive or anything. So if so, please just say no, thank you or something, Were you there when
Okay.
your dad passed?
The first time I wasn't, and it was early June of '94. My dad was battling cancer and he was under hospice care. And the first time he passed away, he'd been in a coma for almost a week. And prior to that, he was like extremely weak. And you would have to hand feed him or hold a straw for him to drink out of and that. And the the night that he passed away the first time, we had hospice care and they worked like every other day. And my mom and I rotate days and fill in when the hospice wasn't there. And hospice goes, we feel he's going to pass away tonight. He had that like rattling noise. He was taking short breaths. His body temperature was 106 at the time. And so my mom goes, I think we'll be fine, but if we need you, we'll call you. Because they go, yeah, we're scheduled off tomorrow. And so my mom goes, well, if we need you, we'll call you. But I think, we can handle it. And Mike can fill in for me if I get, tired. So my mom told me to go to bed and she stayed at my dad's side. And I told her, I said, if he passes away, um, let me know. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll definitely let you know. And so that night, my mom was at his side and it was a little after 3 in the morning. And she heard him take his last breath and she checked his vitals and all that. And she, immediately, uh, of course, grieving at the time. And she was there for about a half hour, she said, grieving. And she finally decided that she needed to go wake me to let me know he had passed away. So we had the hospital bed in our living room at the time. And so she starts leaving the living room to go towards my bedroom to let me know that he had passed away. And which scared her, he sat up out of the bed and goes, hey, where you going? I need to talk to you. And my mom's like in shock. This guy hadn't talked for almost a week. And so he sits up out of the bed and he tells her, come sit next to him. And he goes, look, I begged them for me to come back. I wanted to let you and Mike know that everything's going to be okay on the other side and you don't need to worry about me. And my mom, she sat aside and talked to him for several hours. And during that time, my mom says she couldn't see anyone, but she could feel the presence in the room. She says like the energy would shift and hair on her arms and all that would stand up. And she um, would talk to past relatives that my dad could see, and they would relay messages. Now, my dad's first wife had passed away in the early 60s. She had died of cancer, and she was Japanese. He had met her when he was stationed in Japan. My dad was 22 years in the army. And when he was stationed in Japan, he was military police. And he married her over in Japan and later came back to the States. But she had lost her battle of cancer. And so while he was talking to her, he spoke fluent Japanese and interpreted back and forth to her, to my mom, like
Oh,
she was standing there. Yeah.
cool.
And yeah, my mom says it was amazing. And one of the messages she said was to tell, she told my dad to, tell her that thank you for taking care of you on this side and that I'll be taking care of him on the other side. And which was pretty amazing.
That's
And
really
he had
cool.
yeah, I mean, she was like speechless and like in shock. And he talked to other relatives that had passed, some veterans that he had served with that had passed. He had introduced them, but my mom said she couldn't see him, but he acted like they were right there standing in the room. And he talked about his dog was there to greet him, his favorite pet that he had when he was a teenager. And
Oh,
the dog greeted him when he crossed over. And so she goes to him, like, hey, I need to wake up Mike and let him know, what's going on. This has been amazing and time's flying. I don't know how long you're going to be here. And he goes, well, before you wake him, I'd really like to freshen up. And so she's like, well, here, let me help you. I can go get, washcloth because the guy was having a bed bath, from being in a coma. And he's like, oh, no, 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 I got it. He just got out of the bed, walked across the living room and walked into his bedroom and got a new set of clothes and took a shower and got into his own bed. And he says, okay, go wake up Mike now and tell him that I'm ready to talk to him. And so my
Wow.
mom went to come wake me up. Yeah. So she come to wake me up and she goes, hey, Mike. And I'm like, oh my God, he passed away last night. And she goes, I don't know how to explain this. And she goes, what I'm doing is you just need to get up and see it for yourself. And so I get out of bed and she's like, your dad wants to talk to you. And I'm like, what? And what do you mean he wants to talk to me? And she goes, yeah, he wants to talk to you. And so I start heading towards the living room and she's like, oh, he's not there. And I'm like, what? She's like, he's in his own bed and he's in the bedroom. So that shocked me. So I walked towards the bedroom and there he is in bed and he looked healthy as ever. I mean, all the color was back in his face. He did not look like he was sick. It just blew me away. And so I went in there and he's like, here, have a seat on the side of the bed. And he's like, look, I don't want you to worry about me. Everything's going to be okay. He goes, I begged them for me to come back and to tell you and your mother that you need not to worry about me, that everything's going to be fine. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, since I'm here, do you have any questions? And I go, I was just like in shock. And I'm like, I don't know what to ask. And he's like, well, do you want to know anything about me? And I'm like, well, it's a little late to tell me how to use your tools. My dad was very picky about his tools. He didn't like me borrowing his hammer and not putting it back or whatever. So he apologized because, yeah, I apologize for being so strict. And he goes, don't worry about that. All the tools are yours. I'm sure you'll do fine, kind of deal. And then I had said, well, you've had it rough. You've been battling cancer for 10 years. And I about fell out of his bed there when he says, I haven't had it rough. And I'm not preaching or anything. And my dad goes, Jesus has had it rough, not me. And I'm like, what? And my dad was not a religious person. And if Jesus came out of his mouth, it's because he was cussing. So
Yeah.
that was a that was a huge shock. And he supposedly he said he met him and talked to him on the other side, which blew me away. And so he goes, well, if you have nothing else to ask, he goes, I guess I'm ready to go. So I called my mom back in the bedroom and I said, Dad says he's, done. And my mom goes, well, I don't know how this works. She goes, maybe you got to go back to sleep. Do you want to go to sleep in the hospital bed? And he goes, nope, I'd rather be in my own bed. And he goes, and she goes, well, I guess you got to go to sleep. And he's like, okay, well, before I go, goodbye. Love you guys. Everything will be fine. And if I can, I'll give you a sign from the other side. And I said, okay. And so my mom and I left the bedroom in total shock and let him go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
and we went out in the living room and she's sharing all that happened to her that night. And, we're talking and then a couple of hours go by and we hear his voice from the bedroom going, hello, hello. And we answer him going, hello. And he goes, who's that? And we come running into the bedroom and go, hey, is everything okay? And he looks at us and goes, what are you doing here? And we go, we live here. And he goes, do you mean they didn't come and take me? And my mom goes, I guess not. He was like all shocked. And so he goes, well, what do I do? And my mom goes, I don't know. Maybe they're giving you a free day or something. And so he goes,
Did-
well, I'm really hungry. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
This is amazing. I mean, to have these conversations and everything is just, I mean, it's hilarious, but at the same time, it's like, do you feel like you're just talking to his ghost or what's going on? It's like
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah. It was like, yeah, because he hadn't talked for over a week. And so he's like, I'm hungry. So we're like, well, do you want like a smoothie? Do you want some soup? He was on a liquid diet for almost a month. And he's like, no, I want some real food. I want like a steak, something like that. And I'm like, well, don't have that on hand. And he goes, my wallet's in my dresser. Go get my wallet. And he goes, whatever it costs, go ahead and buy it. I got plenty of money in my wallet. Take my wallet with you. And he says, come back with something and we'll cook it up. I'm like, okay. So I go to my mom. I said, what if I go get all this stuff and he passes away while I'm gone? She goes, well, we'll deal with that when the time comes. And this is 94. I didn't have a cell phone. She couldn't reach me to, get back home right away. So
Wow.
I, drive, yeah. And so I drive to the store and they had at the seafood department fresh crawfish that came in. And I said, wow, he really loved that when we went to Louisiana. I said, I'll surprise him with that. So I got a bunch of crawfish and made like a crawfish broil and got corn on the cob and some potatoes and I got a steak and I even grabbed a six pack of beer just in case, and even rented a movie while I was at the store. I go, maybe he wants to watch a movie while after we're eating. I don't know what this guy wants, but I'm gonna get it, make his last
Right.
day special. So
Right.
I come running home and I get in the house and he's walking around the house dressed and he's like, about time you got back. And he helped make the dinner in the kitchen. He helped cook. And then we sat at the family table and had an amazing meal and talked about past meals we had eaten on family trips and some of the fancy meals he had made during the holidays and stuff. And so after we're done eating, we actually threw in the movie, but I don't even remember what the movie was, but we didn't really pay attention to it. We just talked all through it. And then he finally said, well, don't want to be in the living room anymore. He was sitting in his recliner at the time when we're watching the movie, and he goes, I want to go back to my own bed. And we went in there and pulled out family videos on VHS there and watched family trips and went and got the family photo albums and reminisced about that. And by that time, it was almost midnight in the evening. And he goes, I'm exhausted. And he goes, I'm really glad, we got to do all this today. And he goes, just in case, I don't wake up, just to let you know that, I love you and everything's going to be okay. So he went to bed in his own bed. And um, my mom and I were, in shock. And I said, well, I'm exhausted. I'm still, like I'm numb. Like what happened that day? And she's like, well, it should be an interesting morning. And I said, yes, it should be. And so the next morning, the doorbell rings. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's hospice, the nurse that came for her shift. And my mom comes running in my bedroom and she goes, hospice is here. And I said, okay, we'll let him in. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Your dad's in his own bed. How do I explain that? She goes, he's back into like the coma state. She goes, all the color's gone from him. He's back into the original state he was in. And I'm like, oh, wow. Well, we'll just tell him what happened. So the hospice nurse comes in. She goes walking straight to the living room and she sees the bed empty. And she goes, where is he? Why is he moved? And we're like, well, try to explain to her. And she goes, no, I don't think so. I mean, she goes, that's crazy. She's like, no, um, you just wanted him to die in his own bed. That's not nice. I can't believe you get, she goes, one, I don't know how the both of you got him to his bed. That must have been really hard work because my dad was a good sized guy. And so she called for extra help and they moved him back to the medical bed. And he passed away a couple of days later. And when he passed away, we had asked, for him to give a sign. So that day when he passed away, they came to pick up his body. When we went outside, there was two rainbows right in front of the house, and which was like, wow. And so my mom's, chalked that up as a sign.
Beautiful. I mean, how many people get that chance to have a beautiful day? I'm about to go into tears here. To have such a beautiful time together like that. For him to come back and be able
Yeah,
to have these dinners and have the time to talk about things. asking you if you have questions. What a
Right.
beautiful thing. That's so beautiful. You
Yeah.
guys are such a close family that is just beautiful, beautiful.
Well,
Oh,
he ended up making some connections after his death, which was pretty amazing. Um, Soon after he passed away, for several days after his death, it was like the third or fourth day I noticed it, and I go to my mom, and it was the window next to where his hospice bed was, and he had passed away in the afternoon, late afternoon. I think it was around 2 or 3, and around that time frame, we would have a red cardinal pecking on the window, and it was always that same time of the day. And I go to my mom. I said, "Hey, do you think that's a sign from Dad?" Because he said he'd try to give us a sign. And I said, "Cardinal was his favorite bird." And she goes, "Oh, wow." And she goes, "Yeah, it's about the time he passed away." And as soon as after we said that, the cardinal flew away, and it didn't repeat it anymore after that. That was it. So we chalked that up as a possible him connecting. And then we had some other things like when we were talking that day together, I asked him, I said, "What are you going to miss on this side?" And my dad goes, "Well, I busted my butt to have that backyard looking nice, and I planted a bunch of fruit trees." And he goes, "I always wanted to have oranges and try orange off the tree I grew." He goes, "I always wanted an avocado off the tree I grew and pineapples." And he goes, "I didn't get a damn fruit off them." So then they hadn't produced any fruit the whole time he had them growing. And that fall, we had two avocados, two pineapples, and two oranges that produced on those. And the following year, it was like multiple, way more than two. So we felt that first year was like a sign from him that was one each for us to enjoy. And which was pretty, and they grew pair. It was like a pair, it was just two there. It wasn't like one month and one the next month. It was two there, and that was it. And they didn't produce any more fruit for the rest of that year on those, which was pretty amazing. And then the funeral, which was really amazing, we had a special funeral, and after we got back home, I go to my mom. I said, "Do you want to uh, listen to music while we have dinner, or do you want me to put on the news?" And she goes, "I'd rather have the news." And I said, "Okay, well, you go sit out in the living room, and I'll bring dinner out, and you can relax." So she goes out in the living room, and I'm in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I hear the jukebox turn on, and it's selecting a record, and you hear the rotary, and it picks the 45 and starts playing the 45, and it's blaring loud. And my mom yells out, she goes, "Hey, hey, hey." She goes, "I thought we weren't going to do music." And I said, "No, I thought you changed your mind." And she goes, "No, I'd rather watch the news." And so she goes, "Can you turn it off?" And then I go over to the jukebox, it's all lit up. And I go to hit the off switch on the back of it. And when I look down, I go, "No way." And she's like, "What?" And I bend down and I pick up the plug. It's not even plugged into the wall. And I hold up the cord and I said, "Check this out." And she's like, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." And then I said, "Listen to the song that it's selected." And she's start crying. She's like, "Oh my God." And it picked the Garth Brooks song, "If Tomorrow Never Comes." And and as soon as I said, "You think this is a sign from Dad?" And the lights dimmed, the record came to a slow stop, and so that blew us away. We considered that a sign. And if you see behind me, that's the jukebox that turned on.
so here's a question. So the number of the
Yes.
song, was there a two in that?
That I don't remember. The jukebox held 145s, so you had 200 selections, and it picked that one song.
Was that a special song for your mom and him?
Yeah, well, they both liked it, and it was more my favorite.
Okay.
And but we had a mix of everybody had their own music all mixed in there, and but it just happened to pick that song, which was fitting to the part. It was about a person that dies and wonder if they'll know how much I loved them.
That's awesome. Because it's like you have all these sets of twos. You have two rainbows, two pears, two pineapple, two,
Right,
everything's in two. And then
right.
if tomorrow never comes, so there's a two there.
Oh yeah,
And
Yeah,
then I was
yeah,
just curious about the number of the song, if there's a two in the number, that'd be really interesting.
yeah,
Two is your number.
yeah. Well, his birthday is June 22nd. So there's two there.
There's the two there.
Yeah. And he passed away a day after his birthday.
Oh, wow.
His second time he passed away. Yeah, the 23rd he passed away. We thought he was going to pass away on his birthday. And but it was the 23rd he ended up passing the second time.
Wow. So he really wanted
And
to
then
party it up.
yeah, yeah, it was pretty amazing. And then Christmas, which was another time he made contact. Um, he did Christmas really huge for the family, and he would save money all year for it. And his gift for the family was a gourmet dinner. And when he was in the military, every time he was stationed in a foreign country, he would learn how to do their traditional dishes. And so he lived in Japan for a little over 3.5 years. So, and then he was stationed in Korea, he was stationed in Vietnam. And so he had a lot of Asian countries. So we ate a lot of Asian food growing up. And so I went out Christmas shopping for my mom, and I wanted to do it big for her because it was the first Christmas without my dad. And so I was getting decorations and gifts and food and stuff. And I had a list of all the places I was going to. So I go to this first place and I'm looking for decorations, and I end up finding this angel that's like 4 foot tall. And I said, "Oh my God, my mom will love that." So I buy the angel and I start walking back to my car and I smell cigar smoke, like someone just blew it in my face. And I look around and there's nobody around me. And I'm like, all right, that's weird. So then I'm loading the angel into my car and I could hear my dad's voice in my head and him going, "You need to go to this store." I'm like, "What?" I'm like shocked. I'm like, "Oh, it's got to be my imagination." And the cigar smoke got stronger. My dad used to smoke cigars. And I get in the car and I don't let anybody smoke in my car. And it's strong in my car. And I hear his voice in my head again going, "You need to go to this place right now." And weirdly, in my car, I'm talking out loud to myself. It felt like I go, it's on my list to go if that's you, Dad. And it's like the last on my list because it's way on the other side of town. But I'm going there. And I hear his voice goes, "No, no, 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 no. You need to go now. You need to go now." And I'm like, okay. So I'm fighting back tears and I'm driving all across town to get to this place. And I don't smell the cigar smoke on the drive over or hear his voice. I get in the parking lot, and just before I get to the door of the store, I get smell the cigar smoke again. And I walk in the door and I see something on a display case. And I go, "Oh, that's cool." And I hear his voice goes, "Nope, nope, that's not it. You need to go to the left aisle all the way down and look to your left and you'll see it." And I was like, okay. So I go all the way down there and I see this object this product that he's been trying to order from this store. And the store was Tokyo market, and they specialize imports from Japan. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's been trying to get this stuff for years." So I grab it all off their shelf there, and I go up to the cashier, and the lady's like, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa!" She goes, "You didn't take all of it back there, did you?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, can you at least leave two?" And I said, "I guess." And she goes, "We have a loyal customer that we've had come in here for years that's been wanting this. And we finally got it for him, but we lost his phone number. We didn't know how to contact him. So hopefully he comes in for the holidays because he usually does. We like to at least have a couple for him." And I said, "Can you describe the guy?" And she started describing my dad. And I opened up my wallet and I go, "Is this the guy?" And she goes, "Yeah, that's him." And I said, "Well, that's my dad. He passed away in June." And she's like, "Oh my gosh." She goes, "Well, I guess it's meant to be, you know." She goes, "I'm so glad you were able to come in here and get it." And I didn't tell her what brought me in.
Right.
She probably thought I was crazy. So I, cash out. I start heading out the door and I hear my dad's voice saying, says, "Merry Christmas to you and your mom." And I get in the car and I'm just like fighting tears all the way home and drove straight home. I was like, "I'm done shopping." And I went straight home and I get home and I tell my mom, I said, "You need to go sit down And then I said, close your eyes. And I walked in and I put the angel in front of her and I said, you're getting your Christmas gift early. And she opens up. She's like, "Oh my gosh!" She goes, "No, you should have waited till Christmas." And I said, "Well, there's a story that goes with this angel." And I told her what happened, and then I hand her the bag saying "Merry Christmas from Dad,"
Oh,
And so that was pretty amazing, him reaching out at that time.
yeah, you guys are so close. That's why he's able to do all that. That is so beautiful. What a beautiful story.
Thank you.
That is so beautiful. So beautiful. Oh,
And
so go ahead.
no, no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to go in with you being in the Air Force and as a police officer, you did you have any experiences while you were in the military of paranormal or
Yeah,
anything?
I did. I did have one encounter when I was stationed in South Carolina. I was at an Air Force base in South Carolina, and I was working the gate on night shift. And it was the main entry control point for the base. And late at night, usually there's hardly any traffic that comes in. And so I used to take the desk and turn it around to face the incoming traffic, facing the window. And that way I can either write letters or draw in my sketchbook. Well, that night I happened to be drawing in my sketchbook. Now the gate was old. It was probably built in the late 60s, early 70s, and the door would not shut tight. And that night it was a cold and windy night, and the door kept on getting pushed open. And so the chair, which was on wheels, I would push back the chair and reach out and slam the door and pull myself back up to the desk. And so I'm sitting there drawing and I feel the cold hit my back. And I'm like, oh, the door's open again. And when I look up, there I could see in the window a gentleman standing there in a tan khaki uniform. And I couldn't tell if the way that he was looking in the glass, I figured he was behind me. So I slowly reach for my pistol on my side and I go, can I help you? And there's no response. And so I slowly turned around and he's gone. And I'm like, where did he just go? And I turned back real quick to look out the window, thinking maybe he was outside instead of inside. And there's nobody out there. So I immediately get out and I do a search perimeter around the building and everything. I couldn't find anyone. So I called the law enforcement desk and said, hey, where's all the patrols? And they're like, they're up here taking a coffee break. And I'm like, no one's playing a joke at me at the gate. And they're like, no, why? And then later I had the supervisor come up. I'm like, oh, great. I'm in trouble. How am I going to explain this? He's like, so what's all the commotion up
Right.
here? And, and I explained. So I explained to him, I said, hey, I think I saw a ghost. And he's like, really? He's like, do tell. And I thought he was going to make fun of me. And then I described him and he goes, oh, I've seen him too. I've been stationed here for a long time. When I was a young airman like yourself, he goes, I saw him here. And then he
Wow.
told me across the street from where we had the pass and ID building where visitors would have to sign in, said behind that there was a road that's overgrown. And he says there used to be a gate there. And he says the the air cop that was working the gate there was a pilot ejected from his jet. It was either late 50s, early 60s, ejected, and the plane spun out and hit the gate and killed the air cop that was working the gate. And was cool later on, like years ago when MySpace existed. There was a Air Force group I was on there with, and we're sharing ghost stories during the Halloween season. And it was neat that other cops that were stationed there had experiences also. And they were all like, "Oh wow!" He goes, "I was scared to share my experience, but since you shared yours, yeah, I saw him there too." Which was pretty neat.
And some
So
true
I
ghost
knew I
stories.
definitely wasn't crazy. Yeah,
Right. Not too
but yeah,
often
that
you
was
get to
the
sit and go ahead.
yeah, it was not often that you'd get to talk to other people that had the same experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked in a security guard shack working night shift and I saw Sherlock Holmes in my mirror. So the
Oh, wow.
fisheye mirrors that you could see behind you and all. It was like
Right,
they're
right.
like I don't know, 30, 45 seconds that he was there. And I'm like rubbing my eyes. Like, I know I'm tired, but I'm seeing him there. I'm looking out
Wow.
behind, trying to see if I could see anything that would represent this um, plaid hat and with three, four, brims on it and the pipe and everything. I'm
Right.
like, there's nothing that's showing this. So yeah,
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Wow.
yeah, that was one of my first, I guess, ghost experiences. Was that one there?
Wow.
Yeah. And I just marked it
Um,
down as being tired, just seeing it,
yeah, that's
seeing things.
when you're experiencing a full apparition, you're like, is it, your eyes playing tricks? You keep on questioning yourself because it's happening so fast.
Hmm. Yeah.
And even I've seen so many, through my lifetime, I still, every time one appears, I'm like, okay, am I really seeing this? Because most of the time they look solid. They look like a regular person until they start dissipating and then
Yeah.
they vanish.
Yeah. I've seen
Um,
one that was walking away from me and one that was in front of my garage that was walking. And I didn't see them disappear. I just like, okay, I looked up, saw them, and okay. And then continue. I don't know if that's
wow.
normal or not, but it's like that it just keeps repeating in your head. That's how I know that something because it keeps repeating and repeating. It's like I saw that. This is weird, but
Right.
I saw this. But it's like it feels natural in the moment, but it just keeps the memory just keeps replaying and replaying. So that's how I know it's
Oh
got to be
yeah.
something.
Yeah. The memory, I mean, even though it's years ago, it's still vivid in my head, the
Yeah.
experience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Uh, with my dad after he died, that's where I became a hardcore believer of the paranormal, is where I encountered the opposite, not a pleasant encounter, but a negative encounter. And that started in August of 94. And it was early August 94. I was woken up in the middle of the night. It was around 2 or 3 in the morning. And I felt like someone had broken into the house, like someone was standing in my bedroom. And I tried to reach for the light. And before I could get to the light, I could literally feel two hands grab me by the ankles and start pulling me off my bed. I break free, climb up the bed to get to the headboard to turn on the light. And before I could get to the light, literally feel someone jump on my back and push my head into the pillow. I'm screaming in the pillow, trying to alert my mom know that someone's broken into the house. And I finally break free, turn on the light, grab my gun, turn around, and there's nobody in my bedroom. My bedroom door's closed. And so I'm like freaking out. And I go to wake her up to tell her what had happened. And she's like, "You okay?" And I said, "No." I said, I was just attacked by some unknown force, and she's like, "Are you sure?" And she's like, "Let me," woke her up from a dead sleep. So she's like, "Let me go restroom, wash my face, wake up, and then come back and tell me, what." So I'm waiting in her bedroom for her to come out of the restroom, and I feel like this energy come down the hall in the darkness. And I thought maybe my dog was coming to check on me. And then all of a sudden something hits me square in the chest, like a football, like I was being tackled, threw me backwards about 8 to 10 feet into her bedroom wall. And she sees it and goes, "Oh my God, what happened?" And I'm like, I'm being attacked again. And she's like, "You didn't slip." And I said, "How do I slip from way over there to here? That's a serious slip." No, I'm being attacked. And then as we're talking, all of a sudden it felt like someone put me like in a bear hug where I was like paralyzed. And I'm being, hugged, and she could see the hair on my arms stand up, and I wasn't wearing a shirt, so the hair on my chest was straight out. And she's like, "Oh my God." And then she would put her hand on and touch me. And she said she could feel like the static energy go through her. She could feel it. That's how strong it was.
Oh
And it
my.
would let go of me and then attack me again. And this went on for about a half hour. And my mom, which was amazing, is she was calm through the whole thing. And she first asked me, she goes, when I first got attacked, she thought, "Well, are you having PTSD? Is it flashbacks from the Gulf War?" And I go, "No, it's nothing like that." And so as it's being attacked on and off, she's like, I'm going to take notes. So she's writing down on her notepad, and she decides to take my blood pressure. And she's being calm as can be about it. She takes my blood pressure, and when I'm being attacked, my blood pressure is like super, super high. And she's like, "Oh, that's not good." And then it releases me, and she takes my blood pressure again, and she's like, "Your blood pressure is normal. It shouldn't change that fast." And she would do it on and off as I was being attacked during that half hour. And she couldn't keep up with the notes, and she pulled out a digital, not a digital recorder, but a little mini cassette recorder, and she started recording it to take notes. And
Uh-huh.
after a half hour had ended, it was over with. We figured it was done. I looked at her and I said, "Where's the dog?" During all this, where's my dog? And I had an Akita, which is like a big husky looking dog. And so we went looking for her. She goes, "Yeah, I can't believe she hasn't come and checked on us, all the noise that we're making and all that happened."
Right.
And we go looking for her, and she's hiding. She was literally cowering underneath the kitchen table. She was
Mm.
that terrified. And so the next day, she calls my grandmother to tell her what happened. And as she's telling her what happened, I said, "I'm going to go to the bedroom real quick." And I started heading towards my bedroom, and I got attacked again while she was on the phone with my grandmother.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
she's yeah. And my grandmother's like, break out into prayer. So my mom puts her hands on me and starts breaking out into prayer and finally let go of me. And I couldn't talk. I was like totally paralyzed. And so the day after that, we had met one of her friends that helped take care of my dad. She had came over and we explained what had happened. She's like, "Oh my gosh." And she's like, "Have you played back your tape yet?" And she's like, "No, I haven't." And she goes, "Let me listen to it." And she was like blown away. She could hear, us panicking and our voices, in a panic during it all. And then we heard this odd voice, which would have been the first EVP I've ever heard of. A voice goes off, really loud. And later on, I had a psychic medium that helped us, and she felt that the off was my dad intervening with the spirits that were attacking me, saying to get off me. That's what she thought it was.
Mm.
But later on, after my dad's death, the first weekend my mom and I had a day off, we decided to go for a drive. And while we're out for a drive, we saw a sign said medium psychic fair. My mom goes, "That's really cool. We should stop." And I go, "Well, I've never been to one." She goes, "Well, either have I." And she goes, "I think that would be neat." And she goes, "Don't you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." So I turned the car around and we go to it and we walk in, and I'm very skeptical. Even though I had this crazy experience with my dad, I'm still skeptical. So I go in there and this lady's at this table and she goes, "We have 25 psychics and mediums here that do different things." She goes, "Some are tarot card readers, some, different things." She was giving examples. And so my mom goes, "I'll take, this lady." Sounds like supposedly this lady used like angel tarot cards and communicated with angels. So my mom was drawn to that. And the lady goes, "Do you want one?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm not a big believer." And I said, "Unless you got someone that's actually used by law enforcement, like that helps finding missing people, you got any of those here? Because to me, that's credible." And she goes, "Matter of fact, we do." So I said, "All right, I'll
See?
take her." So I go to her and shake her hand, and she's shocked when she touches my hand. She jumps and lets out like a little scream, and she's like, "Oh my God." She goes, "You have a lot of energy in you." And she goes, "I bet you see a lot of ghosts and you have premonitions that come true." And I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty crazy." And so she goes, "So what brings you in?" I said, I'm just I don't know what I want." And she goes, I said, "How about a little potpourri?" I called it. I said, "A little past, a little of the present, and a little of the future." And she's like, "I could do that." And I said, "All right, by the way, I'm not going to say a word during your reading. I'm not going to nod. I said, when you're done, I will tell you how bad you are or how good you are." And when she was done, she goes, "How'd I do?" And I said, "I'm blown away." I mean, she just didn't say, "As a child, you did." She's like, "At age 13, you did this." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And then she had different things I had done in the military. I mean, she was dead on right on so much. It was crazy. So she impressed me. So during the extreme haunting, we started putting on the Sci-Fi Channel, and they used to have various paranormal shows, and and I they had this series, I think it was called Sightings, and they would have the paranormal team and a medium come in and help families that were having hauntings. And I
Mhm.
go to my mom, I said, I wonder if there's anything like that we can do to find out what is attacking me. And I said, I like to know what's attacking me. And
Right.
she goes, I wonder if that lady you met could help. And I said, yeah, I got her card. So I called her, and she's like, I can't get rid of it. And she goes, but I could tell you what's there. And I said, okay. And so she came over, and she comes in the house, and first off the bat, she goes, wow, you got three nasties here. Really mean spirits, three of them. And I was like, okay. And we didn't share anything about the haunting. We just said we're having activity in the house. That's all we told her, and we wanted to know what was causing it. And
Right.
so she goes out in the living room. She goes out in our living room, and she pulls out this. She had a tote bag with all kinds of stuff, and she puts this silk scarf on our coffee table. And I'm like, okay. And she puts this big candle that's about 6 inches circumference and about 6 inches high, and she puts that in the middle of the scarf, and she lights the candle, and she goes, watch the flame on this. This will detect if there's spirit energy. The higher the flame, that means there's energy near the candle. I said, okay. And she goes, do you have any tea candles? And I said, yeah, I got a bunch of them. She goes, can you light some, put them across your fireplace? So I got about like 6 or 8 tea candles and spread them out across the mantle. And she goes, all right, I'm going to go start reading the rooms. So she goes across the house, and she's reading the rooms, and my mom and I are following her. And we invited a friend over to be a witness. So if we shared any of this, we wouldn't come across crazy. We wanted someone that was skeptical, And so we had have family friend over with us. And so she's going around, and she's describing things to the T. And she's like, she goes to my mom, she goes, your husband was in Vietnam, wasn't he? And she goes, yes. She goes, he was in the military, yeah. And she goes, this is connected to his service in the military. And she goes, what he did in Vietnam was not a typical job in Vietnam. She goes, he was not what they call a grunt soldier. She goes, something very clandestine. And I'm like, oh, well, we heard rumors and that he worked special ops, but we always were told he was a supply sergeant, but found out years later that was not true. And he was with MacV, and he was part of a group called the Phoenix Program, which was in its prime in 69 and 70. And they worked with the CIA and stuff like that. And so she was dead on about that, we found out later. And she goes, these three spirits have been haunting him since Vietnam. She goes, they wanted to go do something for personal gain. And they asked your father for assistance. And he said no, because he was there for God, country, and apple pie type deal, patriotic. And he goes, I'm not going to partake in that. So they went and did it. And supposedly they were killed. And they were haunting my dad and blaming him for their deaths. Now, my dad had like nightmares throughout my whole childhood. We chalked it up as PTSD from Vietnam. But she said, yeah, I'm sure some of that was, but the rest of the time it was probably them tormenting him and haunting him, kind of deal, which was pretty amazing. Um, so she brings that up, and my mom's like in shock. She's like, well, I guess I was naive and oblivious of that. But years later, through my research, I actually found some people that served with my dad and confirmed that stuff. And so this the psychic, she goes into my bedroom, and it's ice cold. Now my bedroom, that's where I was getting attacked a lot. I would be woken up in the middle of the night with my blankets. They'd be like literally shaking, like someone's airing out the blanket. They'd wake me up with them rippling across the bed. And then there was times where I'd wake up and you could see a shadow figure standing at the end of the bed. And all of a sudden I could feel hands grab me by the shoulders and slam me into the head. Or, you know, and then my bedroom, it's
Wow.
always terrifying to sleep there. It was always on alert. And then there was times if I
Yes.
didn't sleep in my bedroom, I'd sleep on the couch and I would be attacked out in the living room. I'd be woken up in the middle of the night with the TV turned on and it'd be going through channels super, super fast and stop and go backwards and forwards with the channels. I couldn't replicate it with the remote. I could not go fast enough on my remote to replicate how that would happen. And my dog would always be terrified when, would go into hiding when that happened. So the psychic goes to my mom. She goes, "Do you have a Bible?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Go get it and open it up and lay it on Mike's bed." So my mom goes and gets this big Bible and she puts it on the bed. And then the psychic goes to me. She goes, "Mike, go get some white paper. I want you to go cut some crosses. And then I want you to tape them to your headboards and on the walls and all that." And she goes, "I'm going to bless them for you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I'm kind of skeptic, and this, go like,
Help.
okay, I don't know how that's going to help, but yeah. So, um, so I go get the paper, and as I'm getting that, I hear the medium, my mom, and my mom's friend scream, and I hear my bedroom door slam super hard. And I come running up and I go, "What's up? Is everybody okay?" And they go, "Oh my God." And I go, What happened?" And they go, "The Bible started flipping pages really fast and lifted off the bed and slammed shut. And then the door slammed in our face." And I'm like, "No." I go, "That, no way." And they're going, "Yeah, way." So I open the bedroom door and it's like ice cold. You can literally see your breath in there. And this is Florida. And this is, it's hot. I mean, we got AC, but
Yeah.
you shouldn't be seeing your breath in the room.
Right.
And so the medium goes, "Go open the Bible again." So I go open it up again and I step back and stand by. They wouldn't come in the room. They're standing back out in the hallway looking in. So I come back out and join them. And all of a sudden the pages start lifting and then they start flipping. And I go, "Is that what it did last time?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I go, "I don't even have my ceiling fan on." I go, "Where's that coming from?" I go, "That's crazy." And then it lifted off the bed again about 4 to 6 inches, probably height off the top of the bed. And then it slammed shut. And then when you see the book slam shut, the door, boom, right in our face. And the medium goes, "I got to go. I wish you the best. You need clergy. I can't help you." We're like, "What?" And she's like, "I gotta go." So she goes out to the living room and to get her stuff off the coffee table. And she gasps. And I go, "You okay?" And she's like, "Look at the coffee table." Her big candle was totally melted across the table, all over the scarf. And she took the
Oh,
scarf, the hot wax, and all, and just threw it in her tote bag. And and all of a sudden I look at the fireplace and I go, "Is that normal?" And the tea candles, the flames were about, I would say, close to 10 to 12 inches high. I mean, every
that's
one
not
of them.
normal.
I mean, tea candles. No, that's not normal. And
Not
and she's
normal.
like, "I gotta go." She's like, "I gotta go. I wish you the best." And
Oh,
she
wow.
ran out of the house and jumped in her car and drove off. She was terrified. We talked to her later, and she's like, "Look, if you want any readings from me or whatever," she goes, "I don't mind that, but I'm never stepping back into that house. I'm sorry. I'm terrified to go back there." And she goes, "I hope you find help." So our neighbor, he had helped with my dad when during his cancer and that. So he was a minister for a Baptist church. So my mom goes, "Maybe he can come over and bless the house. Maybe that will help." Well,
Yeah.
he came over and brought over some clergy with him, and they did a blessing. And as soon as he left, doors were slamming, stuff was falling off the shelves, light bulbs were flickering and, popping. And I go, "Oh no, that just pissed him off." And then I was like, definitely not sleeping in the bedroom that night.
Oh, crap.
And
Now what?
yeah, yeah. So then I go to my mom. I said, um, "Well, what about the Catholic Church? I mean, they got the movie The Exorcist, and everybody goes to the Catholics for help." And she goes, "Well, we're not Catholic. I don't know if they're going to help." And I said, "Well, it doesn't hurt. We're at wit's end. We don't know what to do." And I said, "We can't keep on living like this." And so we went to the Catholic Church and we met this priest there, and he was a veteran. He was in the U.S. Navy, and he believed everything we told him and said that he had witnessed some stuff in his times tours overseas and some countries that did with dark witchcraft type stuff.
Mm.
And he said he had seen some pretty crazy stuff. So he believed us. So he's like, I will reach out to the diocese and see if they can come over and allow me to do an exorcism on the house. And we're like, that would be awesome. So he calls us like a week later and goes, I'm so sorry. The Catholic Church won't help you because you're not Catholic. And I was like, what? So he goes, but please come into my office and come see me. He goes, I really feel bad. And he gave me his personal rosary and blessed it. And he says, sleep with this. See if this will protect you from being attacked. And it helped. I actually got some good night's sleep, when I did have it near me when I slept.
Good.
And but as time went on, this lasted 6 years, but from 94 to late 95 was the strongest time, that the heaviest activity. And so there was times I come home from work and you could feel the energy in the house and I'd be pushed into a wall. I would have things thrown at me like a book, or there was one time I was getting ready for work and I'm sitting in the living room watching the morning news and I had a tower of CDs and three CDs come flying at me like throwing stars and hit me. And I'm like, what the hell? I said, I'm just having cereal, having breakfast. And then my mom, she started, witnessing stuff. She witnessed my dog one time. I was at work and she called me at work and she says, are you coming straight home? I go, why? She goes, I just saw this black mass come out of our fireplace. And I said, well, maybe it's a wind gust that pushed the soot out or something. She goes, oh, it was nothing like that. It was a black mass, came out of there, floated across the living room, and your dog started growling at it and it picked up your dog and threw it into the wall. And she goes, I'm terrified. You need to come home. And I was like, okay. So she witnessed that, and she witnessed one time we had candles levitating on our TV. She had these angels that were silver plated that held stick candles. And we're hearing this rattling noise coming from the TV. And we're like, what is that? What's coming from the TV? And I walk up to the TV, and the thing was wobbling back and forth really hard. And I said, well, the TV can't be doing that. That's crazy. And then as I went to reach it to stop it, it flew up in the air, and I caught it in midair. And I said, how do you explain that? But there was times like I had friends that came over and I was telling what happened and they were like skeptical, and which I don't do paranormal investigating wise, but I provoked back then, didn't know that was a bad thing to do. So I start calling it out to show my friends, hey, this place is haunted. And then all of a sudden the
Right.
lights would start flickering on and off. A door would slam and then no one would come in my house.
I wonder
My
why.
wife,
Hmm.
yeah, my wife, when we were dating, she one time we were getting ready for a date and she was in the bathroom and she called me in the bathroom. She's like, you need to come in here now. And I'm like, I'll be there in a second. She's like, no, you need to come in here now. And I had these pictures of movie stars in 8x10 frames in the bathroom. It was all like vintage movie theme was the bathroom. And all the 8x10s were all moving back and forth and all at the same time. And they weren't making any noise. And we tried to replicate it, like push it with our finger, and you could hear it scraping against the wall. But during that time when they were doing it, they weren't making any noise. And
Oh
she's
my
like, "Are they
goodness.
supposed to be doing that?" And I said, "No, they're supposed to do that." And then she witnessed a shadow figure in the house one time.
Mhm.
And so my mom, she had a student that was a Native American Indian, and she heard that his father was a medicine man. So she reached out and talked to him and she called him and she's like, she goes, I don't know how to ask you this question. I'm not calling you because of your son. He's like, oh, okay. And um, she goes, I'm having this, activity happening in the house. And he goes, yeah, I believe you. He goes, I'll talk to some other medicine men and get the tools that I need, and I'll come over and do a cleansing. And so he came over, and it was about 6 or 8 hours. It was a long time he was there, and did a
Wow.
huge cleansing where the sage was so thick you could see, couldn't see past your hand. That's how much smoke he had in the house. And
Yeah.
he taught me a lot how to stand up to it. He's like, don't be afraid. And I'm like, he goes, hell, you're ex-military and you're ex-police. And I go, yeah, but a bad guy, I could throw handcuffs on and I got something physical I can grab onto. I mean, how do you
Right.
stand up to something that you have no physical, to grab onto? And
Right.
he's like, you just gotta be tough and stand up to it. And then ignore it, just go, not impressed. If they attack you, just go, I've had worse. And he goes, and just stand up to it. And he goes, it'll finally get bored and move on or, weaken over time. So after the cleansing, nothing happened for a full year. It was like real peaceful, like the whole energy shifted in the house, pleasant. And my mom went on a vacation and I was home by myself. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, my Akita, my dog, comes running in my bedroom and jumps on my bed, scared to death. And I'm like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, my bedroom door, and you can hear the other doors in the hallway all opening and closing, slamming. And it was back. And so I yell out, I'm not afraid of you anymore. Bring it on. Let's get this over. And I'm cussing and the doors come to a stop. And after that, we would have, lights flicker or door close. And I would just yell, not impressed. Or if I woke up and saw a shadow figure there in the room, I just yell at it and say, get the F out of my room, get out of the house. And I wasn't attacked anymore for the longest time. And but we'd have a little activity here and there. And then we left Florida in 2005. My mom moved to Tennessee, and then my wife and I followed her. And I helped with the closing of their house. And when I was at their house to close it in Florida, I went to get it all ready for the realtor. When I walked in her bedroom, I could feel that energy I hadn't felt since way back when.
Oh
And I was like,
my.
holy crap. And then I got grabbed into a bear hug. I was paralyzed. And so I broke into prayer in my head and said, let me go. And I finally got let go and went outside. And I called my wife. At that time, there was a cell phone in 2005. So I called her, said, you won't believe what just happened. And I said, I can't believe this happened. It's been so long. And so I said, the realtor's coming, but I'm not going back in the house. I'm sorry. I'm not going back in there. And so that was the end of it, I thought. And it wasn't until years later after I moved to Tennessee, I started doing a lot of research on the haunting in Florida and trying to find out more about my dad's past, see if I could find information about the three spirits that the medium had picked up. And I finally found a guy that served with my dad, and he shared a lot. It was like, wow, big eye opener. And couldn't believe how much my dad was involved in a lot of stuff. And so when I was researching it, also one day my wife took the kids out shopping, and she's like, "Do you want to go?" And I said, "No, I'm fine." And I said, "I'm just going to relax here on the couch. I'm tired." And so she left, and all of a sudden, I felt that energy that I hadn't felt since Florida, and that scared me. I was like, "Wow, I haven't felt that in a long time." And I could feel it. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden, I'm laying in the couch in my living room, and my living room, like a separate room, you got an archway, and then you can see the hallway and the stairs that go up to my kids' room. And there in the archway, this guy standing there in tiger stripes, in full uniform with a beret, and he's got an orange scarf over his face. And I realize it's got to be one of those three spirits, that were harassing my dad from Florida. And all of a sudden I'm like, it was like almost like sleep paralysis. I was frozen on the couch, paralyzed. And I yell out, going, I know who you are. I'm not scared of you. Bring it. Let's get it on. And all of a sudden it comes towards me, which terrified me. Big thing to do, but it came towards me. And as it leaned in towards me, I could see through the scarf, and you could see decay flesh where you could see part of like teeth and bone. His nose was gone. And of course, when it leaned in and showed me that, I I mean, I screamed. It was like, ah, like that. And after I screamed, it went vanished. And so that got me digging more into looking into my dad's past. And I finally found this book written by a guy that did almost like the same work my dad did. And he had a photograph of him in Vietnam with his team, and the team was dressed just like the guy that was in my living room wearing the orange scarf. And I was
Oh
like,
wow.
holy cow. I said that, I mean, I had goosebumps when I opened up the book and saw the photo. I go to my wife, I
Yeah.
said, oh my God. Yeah, I called my mom and I said, oh my God, there's so much confirmation right here. This matches what I saw of that guy wearing in my living room. And reading the book, the orange scarf, because you're like in the military, like, why would you have a bright orange scarf? And they would hide them in their uniform. Now, my dad, when he didn't share a lot about Vietnam, but when I asked him, so in Vietnam, did you wear this or did you wear that? When we watch Vietnam movies. And he's
Mhm.
like, no, I didn't wear jungle fatigues. He goes, I wore black pajamas. He goes, we dressed like Viet Cong, and found out that's exactly what that group I found later on. I didn't, think, oh, that's unique. Yeah, dress like the bad guys. Well, they would go out dressed like the bad guys. And when they were coming back to the helicopters to be rescued or picked up, they would pull out those orange scarves and wear them around their necks. So the gunner on the chopper would know who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. So if those had the colored scarves, they would not shoot them. But if anybody else in black pajamas come running out of the jungle, they would light them up. So I was like
Wow.
blown away. I was like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wow. Oh, this is quite the story. This is a long story, and yet so much has happened. So you
Yeah.
found out these guys were real. Did you ever get
Yeah.
rid of these beans?
I don't know if they're gone or not. I haven't had an encounter since that moment there. The guy showing up in in the uniform. That's the last time I've had any experience with it. But it's an energy that it's stuck with me. When I feel that, because I've gone on a lot of investigations and rarely ever feel anything negative. But that negativity that I felt in Florida and here in my house at that moment, that it's got its own like little signature, I guess you could say, because you
Oh, wow. So at least you know how to protect yourself now, and you can just
yeah,
say, hey,
yeah,
give me your best
yeah.
shot, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been pushed and scratched. And one case I was working on, I had my left ear was burnt. I was in we're all sitting like in a horseshoe shape at an investigation, and the medium goes, Mike, you just like disappeared. I go, what do you mean? It's pitch black in this room. She goes, it's like darker and dark around you. And then I said, yeah, I could feel something around me, the energy. And she goes, yeah, but we can't see you. Everybody else we can see their silhouette sitting in the chairs, but you're just like this black mass where you're at. And she goes, I think you need to leave. I think you're going to be attacked. So I go to stand up, and I felt this big paw of a hand push me down, grab my shoulder, and push me back into the chair. And all of a sudden I go, my left ear is like super, super hot. And she's like, yeah, I think you're being attacked. You need to get out of here. So I finally get out of the room and I'm going out the door. They said they saw like a little ball of light follow me out the door. And I get outside, and one of the team members followed me out, and they looked at me and they go, yeah, your left ear is so beat red. And the next day when I went to look at it, it was peeling like a sunburn.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's probably
Whoa.
one of the most intense things that's happened to me on an investigation.
So did you take the information you got with your dad's uh, so-called friends
Yes.
um, and take that into account and started using that technique with this entity?
Yes. With the investigating, like if I got calls for private residents, I would interview them and they would go, well, I'm going through an extreme haunting. And I'd be like, how extreme? And they go, and they're like, oh, a door closed, or, I felt that it was touched. And I go, has anybody been thrown into walls, dragged out of bed, or things thrown at them? They're like, no, that's only in the movies, right? And I go, no.
No.
And they're always shocked, because they think what was extreme to me is very minimum.
Right. Yeah.
But, and in most of the cases, like people are like I've helped with teams. They're like, oh, we feel it's a demonic. I go, why? Well, we had an EVP that said get out, and I'm like, well, that doesn't mean it's demonic. It just means there might be someone doesn't want you there. Maybe you weren't welcomed in or whatever. So, um, I call them Mr. Grumpies, and usually go find out. Like I had a case that was in North Nashville. The lady had other teams try to help her, and they gave her all kinds of crazy help. She got conned by one lady, sold her $300 a can spray. I called it Ghost Be Gone spray, but she bought a case of 12 for $300 a can to cleanse
Goodness.
her house. Yeah. And other teams were telling her all kinds of scary stuff. And I brought in three different mediums that, don't interact with each other. I don't let my mediums talk to the clients at all. And then we do all the research and see if it matches. And then once we have all the connections, then we'll share anything that we got from the medium. Because one, I think if you're telling it right then and there during the case, having the client watch the medium talking to them, they can push a fear factor. And I've seen that go bad. Helping other teams that had a medium, telling them like, oh yeah, you got this lady here that drowned her kids way back when, and she wants to hang out with your kids, and that's terrifying a lady.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
especially if she's
yeah.
got kids. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, how do you know that? We don't have any of our data to back that up yet. And you're telling this lady that that's not good. So I don't work that way. So it was about almost a year investigation in this lady's house. We went back multiple times, and she had multiple spirits in her house. But she had one that she just felt was evil because it tormented her, and she was terrified to go to the second floor of her house. And multiple times we went up there and had EVPs to back up the medium. Is there was a World War I vet, and when bought the house, there was his flag, his funeral flag was in the closet, and it was all mildew and moldy, and it was a huge house, gigantic place. And she had staff that worked for her, and she told her staff to take the flag outside to burn it. Well, that upset him, so he was mean and to her every time she came upstairs, or he'd torment her sometimes in her bedroom. Yeah.
You
And
burned my
so,
flag, man.
yeah, yeah. And so we had different mediums that Rhett picked up on that. And then we did EVPs where we did questions and says, "Is this true? Did she burn your flag?" And we had, responses of yes. And then, had, a voice say my flag and stuff like that. So we had her go in there and apologize and give her a flag and a new one and put it in the closet. And she now lives peacefully in that house and uses that room as a gym, to work out in.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice. I've been hearing a lot more about the negative spirit and everything, um, that they're not necessarily negative. I mean, they're just,
right,
like you're saying, they're just grumpy. If somebody upset them, it's like
right.
somebody going into your house without permission and just going through things. You're going to be a little grumpy too. you know?
Yeah, yeah. We had one guy,
You
he was
know?
terrified to go into this. He was remodeling his house and he took the wallpaper down, and behind it was this rose wallpaper. And that ended up being the original wallpaper that this lady had put in there, and she had died in that house. And the
Oh,
medium had picked up on that. And then we had EVPs saying she didn't like the guy. So I said, hey, just try it. I said, cut out some of that wallpaper, put it in a 5x7 frame and hang it on the wall and apologize to her and say, here, I'll keep a little piece just for you. And that made everything better. He said the activity came to an end. So that, stuff like that,
yeah,
I think is, look, trying to help, instead of a lot of the paranormal shows I see, you don't see them finding an answer or help. They just move on and leave them hanging, going, well, how do they end it? Or how are they living with it? I don't like the fear factor, of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had,
I would agree
no,
with
good.
you. It's you got to kind of solve the problem. I was up in Estes Park here in Colorado a few weeks back, and we did this paranormal days up at the Stanley, and we had Grant and Rihanna Wilson. They're from
Hmm.
the Ghost Hunters. So they were up there talking, they were talking the same thing you're saying. They're not mean and they're not violent or anything. Well, they could be a little violent, but
Yeah,
they're just upset. Something has upset them and they're just upset. They just need someone to talk to them and say, hey,
right,
we apologize. We're sorry we upset you. Kind of like what you're saying. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And I've also helped clients where they like did a ghost hunt in their house, and then all of a sudden they got all this activity all of a sudden, and they're all scared, going, "Oh my God, I didn't know all this was going to happen if I did this." And I go, "Yeah, it's not like the TV shows." And I give them an example. I said, "Do you imagine if you were in solitaire for years and talked to no one, and then someone out of the blue knocked on the door and goes, 'Hey, how's it going? You want to talk?' And you
Right.
talk to them for only 10 minutes, and then after that, you're done. you're like, hello, can you come back? Can you come back? So
Right.
to me, that's, what spurs a lot of activity, I think, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're going to
I could
open
see
a
that.
door, you got to figure out how to close it. Every time we finish a session, we always say, thank you for talking to us. We're going to end it here. Hopefully we can come back and talk to you later. But if we can't, we just want to appreciate you for sharing, your story or letting us know you're here, kind of deal. Try to
Yeah.
end it on a positive note. Um, a cool positive experience that happened with my dad's haunting, that's connected to it, is when my dad passed away, the day he passed away, we called his mother, my grandmother, to let him know that he had passed away. And I was shocked. My grandmother goes, well, since my son's dead, I guess we're done. And I go, what? No, I'm still your grandkid. And she's like, oh, no, there's no reason. You're a grown adult. We don't need to stay in touch. And I'm like, oh, that's just crazy. And she goes, no, I think that's best. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I mean, we can stay in touch, send Christmas cards, talk on the phone, whatever. And she's like, no, that's all right. We'll end it here. And she hung up. She wouldn't answer my calls. I, sent letters or a Christmas card and never got a response. And so I was like, wow. I go, that's sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's in 94. She said goodbye. And moved to Tennessee in 2005, and then in the year 2012, June of 2012, um, I was woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I look at out my I see my bedroom window, and someone's pacing on my front porch. I can see their shadow going past the window. My curtains are closed, but you could see someone pacing back and forth.
Yeah.
And so I get up and throw on my pants, going, "Who the hell's on my porch at 6 o'clock in the morning?" And I go up there and I open the door and slowly open the storm door and poke my head around the corner. I go, hello. And I see this lady standing there on the porch with her back towards me, long black hair. And she's wearing like a London fog trench coat. And when she turned around, it was my dad's mom, my grandmother. And my grandmother was always known for wearing that London fog coat. Didn't matter, winter, summer, fall, whatever. That coat went everywhere with her. And she turned around and she was crying. And I said, are you okay? And she goes, I am so, so sorry that I ignored you and hurt you. She goes, please forgive me. And she walks up to me and I walk up to her and I said, no, you've had a rough life. No, I forgive you. And she's like, thank you. And she reaches out and hugs me. Now I can feel her body, solid as can be. She was frail. I could feel her hair and I could feel her hugging me. And when we were hugging, I felt the most intense feeling of love that was so strong. It's hard to describe. And then all of a sudden, she started turning into bright white light that was so blinding that I had to close my eyes. And then I could feel her grip get weaker and weaker, and the light started dimming. And you could actually, with your eyes closed, you could still feel the white or the light, through your eyelids. It was that blind. It's like someone took a mag light and put it right in your face. And I opened my eyes and she's gone. And I got my arms out, standing there on my front porch, and I'm looking around like, is there a neighbor checking their paper or whatever? I'm going, okay, I'm just standing here hugging it. And I'm like in total shock. I walk back in the house. I go back to my bedroom, get to my side of the bed, and my wife wakes up and she's like, are you okay? I go, I don't know. And she goes, why? What's wrong? I go, I can't explain it. And she's like, what happened? And I said, I think I just had an encounter with my dead grandmother. She'd been dead for about 7 years. And she's like, all right, let me go make some coffee and we'll talk about this for breakfast. I was like, okay. And all of a sudden I got super, super dizzy, lightheaded. And I tried to stand up and I fell and yelled her for help. And I started throwing up. And I finally got myself together and I reached out to some mediums I know and told them the experience I had. And they
Yeah.
said, yeah, your body was not you're not used to that type of energy, and that energy of holding her and all that, your body's releasing that, and that's why you got dizzy and nauseated and all that. But it was intense, a most amazing experience. I mean, she was as real as can be. I felt her, it was, I've been interviewed for TV shows about it, and they're always going, so in your dream, I go, I never said it was a dream. It was for real. I said, why would I get out of bed in a dream, put my pants on? I said, I literally put my pants on and went out to the, you know, to the porch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I spoke with my brother. He's a medium, a fantastic medium, but he doesn't use his skills. So he's just like he's on the low with it. But I found out how good of a medium he was, he had gotten a hold of my baby that I miscarried at 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And he did the same thing. He did some hugging with her. He felt her hand. He's like describing what her hand felt like. He was described her hugs because she was giving me a hug through him. It was just so amazing. So
Wow.
amazing. Yeah. So I can kind of see what you're saying with that touch and all because he was like, oh yeah, you could definitely feel her hand and it was so soft and just like, oh, just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an amazing experience, and it's kind of hard to believe, but I mean it happened. I was like, I don't know how else to explain
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've seen apparitions and never been able to reach out and touch them. I've only once on an investigation where I've actually said, I know you're here. And I was all by myself. I worked at a museum locally, and it was very, very haunted. And so I went in early before it opened to the public. And so I said, I'm going to go do an EVP session. I'm going to go in an hour early and I'm going to go do an EVP session and see if I can make connection. So I went up to the second floor. I'm standing there in the hallway and I said, I know you're here. I've gotten your voice on the recorder several times and I think I've seen you a couple times. So if you want to show yourself, feel free. Well, all of a sudden at the end of the hallway, this 6 foot figure steps out in the hallway and he's like glowing almost like a candle flame, just standing there. And I'm like, and you hear on my recorder going, okay, now what do I do? and, I, and I was like in shock. And I go, okay, well, thank you for showing yourself. And then step back into the room. And I walked down there and there was nothing in there. I was like shocked. I was like, wow. But yeah, that museum I worked at was so active. And a lot of
Wow.
we had one lady literally quit. She was working the gift shop. And in the middle of the gift shop at that time was a table. They had all these old-fashioned candies, and they had a wooden doll with these old fashion suckers in the doll.
Uh-huh.
And she heard the doll on the table. It was vibrating. And she was like, what is causing that? And we have a railroad. It's a railroad museum. So there's a train track just outside the door. So she thought, well, maybe the train's coming and it's making the table vibrate. Well, then all of a sudden, one of the suckers pulls out and literally levitates across the gift shop. Like someone had picked it up out of it and was walking away with it. And when it got to the wall, the sucker hit the wall and fell to the floor. And she screamed, grabbed her purse, and ran out and said, I'm not coming back here.
All done. It's all over with. Yeah, I had my first um not paranormal. Oh my goodness. Poltergeist recently.
Oh, well.
My first one, but I realized that it was not just a poltergeist, it was actually Bigfoot that had come
Wow.
into my house and moved one of the cans in my husband's collection. So it was
Oh,
like
wow.
because I heard it drop and it like fell across the bedroom. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't necessarily can happen.
Right. Right.
These have been there for like 20 plus years. And it's like, this is off. But yeah, I believe it was one of the Bigfoot that's in my backyard that came in and was observing the house, checking things
Right.
out. it's like, oh, cool. What is this? Like, what is this? Oh, oops. You know?
Right. The
So go ahead.
had something similar where that case that I was working at where I had the veteran with the flag, the lady had
Uh-huh.
multiple things in her house. And one of the things that we encountered in her master bedroom, she had this huge master bedroom where it had a long hallway off it, and to the right was the restroom with a big, huge his and hers sink and all that. And then if you go to the left, it was a his and hers walk-in closets.
Wow.
And then if you went straight, it was like a Florida room. So we had motion lights on the hallway, covering down the hallway and towards the closets. And I had two team members in the bathroom watching the closet. And they're going, Mike, there's something in the closet. You need to come down here. It's triggering the motion detectors. And so I come down there and I go to everyone. I said, something's in the right closet. I said, don't blink, just stare. I know something's in that closet. And all of a sudden it appears and I yell out, I see you, which scared the other members next door the room. But the ones that were there with me were like, oh my God. And we all saw it. And after I called it out when I saw it, it went through the wall. The back of the closet went through there. But when it appeared, it was on. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Predator when it cloaks and it has that shimmer.
What a shimmer. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. It appeared. It was all shimmering. You could see the full silhouette of the person, and it had that cloaking like shimmer thing. And when it appeared, I was like, "Oh my God!" I go, "I see it," and they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "We see you," and then it just went right through the wall. That was the first time ever encountering anything like that. So I think if there's something like that, they can do. They can cloak or whatever ability they have. But that blew me away. I was like, "Wow." That was not
Yeah.
like, like shadow figures when they appear, they're a black mass. And
Yes.
we've done experiments with lasers where a shadow figure will break the laser. Those where you could
Really?
aim it down. Yeah, you can aim it down the hallway and then all of a sudden your laser's halfway in the middle of the hallway. Like, how did that point just get closer? And you see a black mass there. And I'll
Wow.
take like those Christmas, you can buy these projectors, they have multiple laser points and I'll plug one of those in the wall. And I've done it at a school. This we've investigated a public high school here in Tennessee that's active. Not act, it's active paranormal and it's active schools with students in it. So the students and the teachers are actually witnessing stuff at the school, and that's why we were called in to because the
Oh,
principal's like,
wow.
I'm tired of all these ghost stories. This place ain't haunted. Prove me wrong. And we're like, well, you can sit in an investigation with us if you want to see. He's like, yeah, yeah. He goes, because I want to put an end to this. All these students saying there's ghosts in here and teachers complaining they've seen stuff. He goes, yeah, I'd like to go on you. At the end of the night, he was a believer. We witnessed so
Wow.
much stuff. And we put like a laser grid across the stage, that theater. The school had a big theater and there was a lot of activity used to happen in the theater. And all of a sudden you would see the dots on the stage wall, and then all of a sudden they were closer. You could see where someone's standing on the stage because the black mass blocking it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's breaking the laser, which is pretty cool. And at that school, it was I think it was about three investigations ago, about a couple of years ago, where we actually said, "Look, we've been here so many times. We know you're here. We're not afraid of you. Can you show yourself?" And one of my team members luckily had her cell phone real quick to take a picture, but we all started seeing it manifest by the stage. We got a white, wispy, about
Mm.
6 foot figure appeared when we asked it to show itself. We were like, "Whoa."
Nice.
Yeah, scared me.
Nice.
Yeah, one teacher ended up going home. I was like, we took a break after that, and I'm like, where's so and so? And they're like, oh, she's done. She's seen enough for tonight.
I bet they were looking for a new teacher the next day, huh?
Probably. But yeah,
I'm
that
done.
place was off. Yeah, it's off the charts. We've had classrooms we've gone investigate where teachers have complained that they've seen stuff in their classroom. Sure enough, the classrooms were crazy where we put motion detectors like at the teacher's desk, and the lights would light up when we was like, hey, if you want, you can sit at the teacher's desk, and boom, the chair would light up right after we asked them to sit down, which is
So,
pretty
do you know
crazy.
the history of the land? Is
Yeah,
there what happened?
well, some of it was farmland and a lot of Civil War activity. And
Mm.
then right behind the school is a cemetery, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
not a big one. So there might be something linked to that. And they've seen different time period spirits there. Like they tore down the school was built like in the late 50s, early 60s, and they just tore it down. I think it's been 6 years now. And then they rebuilt a new one on top of it. And they thought, oh, once we tear down the old school, that's the end of the activity. No, it got stronger when they put the new school up. They had all kinds of stuff happening. And so they called us back to come in to see what we can connect with. And but there was a teacher one time, he was in the library, and he saw a lady wearing the poodle skirt, and her hair was in ponytail, and
Oh,
it had the socks and all, and she was like looking at books, and he was using the Xerox machine, and he looked at her like, why is she dressed like that? And then she smiled at him and just poof, vanished and scared
mm,
him. And then we investigated in the library and we captured, we didn't see it with our own eyes during the investigation, but our video camera captured it while we were sitting in around the table doing an EVP session. A red ball of light floated in the room, went around a beam, came back, went past us again, and went out of the library. A little ball of red light, which we can't
oh,
explain, which was pretty cool. And then we've caught
right.
stuff on we put trap cameras in there and locked all the doors to the library and came back and literally caught big masses manifesting over tables and stuff like that. And then one time they had all the computers off in the library and they had all these motion lights lined up the whole length of the library. And they were probably
Hmm.
about 10 feet apart. And I said, look, I can see you walking by the bookshelves down there. I can see shadow masses moving. I'm not afraid of you. If you want to come talk to us, come closer. And all of a sudden, all the motion lights start coming on one after the other, all the way up to us. And the teachers are gasping,
Nice.
like, oh my God. And then we had one where we said, can you turn on the light? And the one of the computers turned on by itself. The monitor came on. And I go, is that supposed to do that? And he's like, no, they're all turned off. That
Turned
should
off.
not come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had some pretty amazing experiences at that school.
That's pretty awesome. That is really awesome. I would love to have you back and talk some more about some of your experiences with your investigations and those kinds of things. So, if you would be willing, I would love to have you back and talk some more. I know we could talk
Yeah.
forever here.
Oh, yeah. I've done a lot of investigations all over the place. And then the house I live in is haunted, but not negative like it was in Florida. It's all positive spirits that we've had encounters here. And we have multiple spirits in this house, from little kids to grown adults that we've all witnessed here.
Oh,
And
yeah, we'll have to talk.
my house is kind of like a lab where I have motion sensors all over the house, motion lights and stuff like that. So
That's awesome. That is really awesome. Yeah. We could talk some more about your those experiences and all. But I would love to have you back if you would be willing.
yeah, I would love to. Thank you.
Awesome.
Enjoyed
Awesome.
enjoyed talking.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a great time. I really enjoyed having you here and having like the craziest, coolest near death that's,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that I have heard. It's just unbelievable, and I love the story. It's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
If anyone else out there has a story you would like to share, email me lighttalk423@gmail.com, and we will talk with you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you.